Parents of twins, if you're familiar with far-off drop-offs...
Dad, stop, right here.
Or get DMs about what's for dinner, you may be experiencing tween milestones. For your son or daughter, these can start at age 9. HPV vaccination, a type of cancer prevention against certain HPV-related cancers, can start then too.
For most, HPV clears on its own. But for those who don't clear the virus, it can cause certain cancers later in life.
Embrace this phase. Help protect them in the next.
Ask their doctor today about HPV vaccination. Brought to you by Merck.
It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Sponsored by Secure Cash, LLC. Talking the news with Noam Laden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noam.
On 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me, 5 o'clock. Good morning. It is Wednesday, April 9th. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. Sunshine today, warmer than it was yesterday. High going to be 50. Tonight and overnight, a few passing clouds, low 40. And then Thursday, kind of the same thing. Sun, clouds, high 50. If you are walking out the door with us right now, 32 in clear in Mount Vernon up in Westchester County. 31 in clear in Clark over in New Jersey, and it's 34 in clear right outside our Midtown studios.
The top 5 at 5.
How will China respond to some new tough tariffs? The search for survivors continues amid the rubble of a Santo Domingo nightclub. A Long Island teen is accused of murdering his grandmother. Did a Queens hospital really mix up babies back in 1960? And a New York City woman wants to take her parrot for a ride on an airplane. We'll get into those stories and more right now. 5:01. Let's start out in the Dominican capital. The roof of that iconic nightclub collapsing early yesterday during a merengue concert that was attended by politicians, athletes, others. The death toll there, 98 people, 160 injured. They are still looking through the rubble for survivors at the Jet Set nightclub, which is a well-known nightclub in Santo Domingo. Apparently has been around for decades. So now we're nearly 20 hours since that nightclub collapsed onto patron. Rescue crews have still been pulling out survivors from under the debris. And back in here in New York, where there's a large Dominican community, people, of course, are calling back home, checking with family, see how everybody's doing.
So now they can't find all the bodies.
Very sad because like right now, this is like a tragedy to our Dominican community.
Now, Ruby Perez, he was performing at the time when the roof collapsed. He's a well-known merengue singer. That we had gotten word that he had been rescued, that he had somehow walked out of the rubble. But now they're telling us no. They think he's still down amid the rocks.
It's hitting home really hard. And for those of us that know the culture, we know it's going to be a big loss.
Now, two former professional baseball players, including Tony Blanco and World Series champ Octavio Dotel, were among those killed. Back here in New York, people trying to figure out how they can help back home. And, of course, making sure their loved ones are not amid that rubble.
Much more needs to happen, and we're hopeful that they'll be found alive and that the rescue teams will get to them quicker than later.
All right, so again, the death toll as of 5:02 this morning, 98 dead, 160 injured. Crews are still at the scene. In fact, crews flying in from all over the world to help search that rubble for more survivors. 5:03, stocks closed sharply lower yesterday after a relief rally just fizzled. You remember when I went to 9:30, the Wall Street report, the Dow was up 1,200 points. Boy, that's not the way the day ended. The Dow was down. Alliance Chief Economic Advisor Mohammed El-Arian says two things are possible in the near future as the market fluctuates with the U.S. tariffs in full effect.
One is that we are on the road negotiating, and we will get to a fairer trading system that will unleash a lot more U.S. dynamism.
And El-Arian says the other outcome could be this protracted tariff fight with the world and a threat of recession. Stocks plunged in late trading after the White House confirmed it will impose this 104% tariff on all Chinese imports starting at midnight, which it's happened. Now we're 5 hours in.
This is a very bumpy road. It's protracted. It's going to take a long time. And in the meantime, we're facing recession risk. This is a very bumpy road. It's protracted. It's going to take a long time. And in the meantime, we're facing recession risk.
I think you just said that. The press secretary, the White House one, Caroline Leavitt, says the world is responding to President Trump's approach to level the playing field when it comes to tariffs.
American economic surrender is over. President Trump is no longer going to allow American workers and companies to be ripped off at the hands of foolish trade practices that shipped away millions of high-paying jobs and hollowed out communities across the country.
She says more than 70 countries have reached out to begin trade negotiations as those Wall Street numbers tank.
Despite fear-mongering by the media, the world is clearly responding to President Trump's approach. Just yesterday, President Trump held a bilateral meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu here at the White House. The Prime Minister pledged to immediately eliminate America's trade deficit with Israel.
And they did do that. The press secretary went on to say that this China tariff is because China's not responding the way the White House wants it to. She talks more about this. This was yesterday, hours before the tariff was put in place, which was at midnight.
He believes that China wants to make a deal with the United States. He believes China has to make a deal with the United States. It was a mistake for China to retaliate. The president, when America is punched, he punches back harder. That's why there will be 104% tariffs going into effect on China tonight at midnight. The Chinese want to make a deal. They just don't know how to do it. But the president will be implementing these 104% tariffs on China tonight. Countries like China, who have chosen to retaliate and try to double down on their mistreatment of American workers, are making a mistake. President Trump has a spine of steel, and he will not break. And America will not break under his leadership.
Okay, so what does that mean for the Wall Street numbers today? Well, I guess we'll find out in just a couple hours. Meanwhile, a bipartisan bill that was introduced by Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley would give Congress more control over tariffs. In other words, it wouldn't just be up to the White House. President Trump says he'll veto that bill if it passes, but Grassley, he's holding firm.
I'll continue it regardless of the president's comments, because the Constitution's on my side.
Grassley says he also made an attempt to regain congressional control over tariffs during Trump's first term, but that failed. 5:06, a major New York City murder conspiracy ring taken down.
Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg, Mayor Eric Adams, and Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch have charged 16 people with 21 shootings from March to September of 2024. Bragg says the bullets were flying
on crowded street corners, playgrounds, near children, through the windows of a NYCHA lobby and a bus stop.
The defendants were in rival gangs operating out of the Lehman and Johnson houses and committed 50% of the shootings in the NYPD's 23rd Precinct in East Harlem. I'm Lisa Ritchie for 77 WABC News.
5:07, first check of traffic and transit on the 7s on this Wednesday morning. Good morning, Joe Nolan.
Well, good morning, Noah. Morning, everybody. From the RayCatina.com traffic desk. Again, as you travel out there this morning, we've got a couple of things you want to know about. First of all, southbound on the Taconic Parkway, right at the Sawmill River Parkway, there is a disabled vehicle. He's off on the shoulder, really not bothering anybody at this point, towing everybody on the scene of that one. And then northbound on the Jersey Turnpike, the inner roadway going to be closed on the overnight for the road work. Now, if you're coming inbound from Long Island, we're looking very good this morning. You don't have any issues at all. LIE, Northern, Southern, all good. Cross Island Parkway, everything in Queens seems to be moving along very, very nicely this morning. You don't have any problems on the Belt Parkway getting into Brooklyn. And then in Lower Brooklyn, as you come inbound on the Gowanus BQE, just a little tap of the brake as you begin to come inbound, getting onto the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway from the Gowanus. Now, if you're over in New Jersey, we're doing very well this morning. Route 22, 24, Route 10, all that in good shape. We don't have any problems on 80 or 280 or 287 this morning. Of course, the usual delays eastbound on Route 80, getting into the closure at exit 34, about a half a mile at this point. So maybe even a little better than usual. George Washington Bridge heading outbound. There was some overnight road work, so that's got things backed up a little bit. And mass transit at this point, New Jersey Transit trains, Long Island Railroad, everybody else on or close to schedule. Discover the perfect blend of luxury and performance with the 2025 Jaguar F-Pace. Enjoy exceptional 2.9% APR financing up to 72 months for qualified buyers. Schedule a test drive today. Jaguar Marlboro, a proud Ray Catena dealership. I'm Joe Nolan with traffic on Talk Radio 77 WABC.
WABC News Time 5:09. Special envoy to the Middle East set to lead nuclear talks with Iran. That'll come on Saturday.
U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff will lead the talks on behalf of the United States, which is set to focus on Iran's nuclear program. In an online post, Iran's foreign minister described the talks as an opportunity as much as it is a test, going on to say that the ball is in America's court. Direct talks between Washington and Tehran haven't taken place in a decade. Speaking Monday at the White House, President Trump said Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, and if the talks aren't successful, Iran will be in great danger. That follows earlier comments from the president to NBC News, where he said if Iran doesn't make a deal, there will be bombing. Trent Murray, Tel Aviv.
WABC News Time 5:10. The White House border czar, highlighting the Trump administration's efforts to secure the southern border. Tom Homan spoke to Arizona lawmakers before a special joint session at the state capitol in Phoenix yesterday.
We're going to get this job done with no apologies. When we're done, we're going to have the most secure border in the history of this nation. We're going to make this country safer. Every criminal alien we arrest, every gang member we arrest, every TDA MS-13 member we arrest out of the country, makes this country much safer.
Holman says more people were arrested in the first 2 months of President Trump's second term compared to former President Biden's last year in office. The address focused on the current border challenges and cooperation between the federal and state governments.
This administration right now in power is going to have, for the first time in history of this nation, have total operational control of our southern border under President Trump. It's going to happen. You can take that to the bank. We've arrested more people in the first 2 months under the Trump administration than Joe Biden did all year last year. I'm happy. I'm not satisfied. There's hundreds of thousands of illegal aliens in this nation with criminal records that walk in the streets. We need to find every single one of them and get them out of this country.
Some moments where some of those lawmakers, Democratic ones, walked out on the address. Holman says, while a lot has been accomplished, he said the job is far from being done. 5:11, Elon Musk calling a trade advisor for President Trump a moron after claims made about Tesla. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says the administration is not concerned with this back and forth between Elon Musk and Peter Navarro.
Look, these are obviously two individuals who have very different views on trade and on tariffs. Boys will be boys, and we will let their public sparring continue.
Okay. Navarro claimed Tesla is not a car manufacturer, instead a car assembler that puts vehicles together with parts from other countries. Musk says what Navarro's claim is false. He said the trade advisor is dumber than a sack of bricks, and the company is most vertically integrated auto manufacturer in the U.S. He's talking about, of course, his Teslas. The billionaire says Tesla has the most American-made cars. 5:12, President Trump signing an executive order yesterday that aims to revitalize the coal industry here in the U.S.
Coal is the single most reliable, durable, secure, and powerful form of energy there is on Earth today.
This was at a ceremony at the White House yesterday. The president says he's ending what he called former President Biden's war on clean coal. He says Biden put thousands of coal miners out of work during his time in office.
Today we're taking historic action to help American workers, miners, families, and consumers. We're ending Joe Biden's war on beautiful, clean coal once and for all.
And the president talked about other countries that are switching back to coal now.
Germany went green. Very green. They went so green they almost went out of business. Germany was finished. They went to wind. The wind wasn't blowing too much. And they went to all sorts of other things. You know, the Green New Scam hit Germany too. And guess what? Now they're back to coal.
WABC News Time 5:13. While we're in Washington, D.C., the acting IRS commissioner resigning.
Multiple reports say Melanie Krause is stepping down after the agency agreed to share illegal immigrants' tax information with federal immigration agents. Krause is the third person to leave the agency since January. Doug O'Donnell was acting commissioner until announcing his retirement last month. I'm Mark Mayfield.
5:13, let's bring it back up here to New York. Mayor Adams showed up in a T-shirt at his weekly news briefing with reporters.
The mayor wore a white T-shirt with an American flag and the words, "In God We Trust." He said it reflected on the recent court ordeal he went through.
This outfit is not campaigning.
This outfit is my life. In God we trust. I went through hell for 15 months, and all I had was God.
Federal corruption charges against him were dropped, and Mayor Adams decided to run for re-election as an independent. He had words for other mayoral candidates.
All of them are running from their records. I'm running on my record.
He said, let them fight it out. Lisa G., 77 WABC News.
What a wacky weather pattern we've been in, right? I mean, it's 32 degrees right now. It's April 9th. It's not supposed to be that cold. All across the country, they're feeling this. The rain easing in places where there's been lots of flooding in the South and Midwest. Correspondent Marissa Para reports that 4 days of heavy rain down south has wreaked havoc on some areas.
The damage in terms of dollars and cents, that will take time to assess. But we know this weather system has already claimed at least 24 lives. President Trump has approved emergency declarations for states like Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas.
Para says more than a foot of rain has fallen in some places just since the middle of last week.
When we talk about river flooding, it is unpredictable. So even though we here in Tennessee are not expecting rain in this area specifically, the threat isn't over yet.
Clarksville, Tennessee, that was one of the towns hit really hard.
This is a community that has not even seen the water recede. There's a lot of communities that haven't even started the recovery process. This, as the threat is still looming for so many.
Yeah, so it's been a wild beginning to the spring. 5:15, let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk. Happy Hump Day. Good morning, Justin Allen.
Happy Hump Day. Good morning to you, Noel Maladen. Start here at the Garden. The Knicks lost to the visiting Boston Celtics 119-117. Kristaps Porzingis made a tie-breaking three-pointer with 40 seconds left in overtime after Jason Tatum's three-pointer with just under 3 seconds left remaining forced the extra period in regulation. And the Celtics completed the season sweep of the Knicks with the win. They had routed the Knicks by 23, 27, and 13 in the three previous meetings. Karl-Anthony Towns had 34 points and 14 rebounds for the Knicks. Jalen Brunson added 27 points and 9 assists in a strong second game back after a 15-game absence with a sprained right ankle. Boston became locked into the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference during the game when Cleveland completed its victory over Chicago to secure the East number 1 seed. Up next for the Knicks, still holding on to the number 3 seed in conference. They'll visit Detroit tomorrow night in a possible playoff preview. The Pistons in Brooklyn. Trendon Watford scored 22 points. Drew Timme had 16 points and 9 rebounds off the bench, and the Nets beat the New Orleans Pelicans 119-114 to snap a 5-game losing streak. Coming up next for the Nets, they'll welcome in the Atlanta Hawks tomorrow night. To the MLB in Queens, Pete Alonso drove in 4 runs. Francisco Lindor hit a leadoff homer, and the Mets beat the Miami Marlins 10-5 for their 6th consecutive victory. Clay Holmes struck out a career-high 10 in 5 1/3 innings for his first win with the Mets, and second as a Major League starter. Brandon Nimmo broke a 5th-inning tie with a 2-run double, and Starling Marte blooped a 2-run single. Juan Soto had 2 singles and scored twice. Going for the series sweep, the Mets will throw Tyler McGill in this afternoon's series finale with Miami, set for a 1:10 p.m. first pitch from Citi Field. In Detroit, the Yankees suffered their 3rd straight loss in the form of a 5-0 shutout at the hands of the Tigers. Good for the Yankees' first goose egg of the season. They've scored just 2 runs in the first 2 games of the series, shifted to daytime because of cold weather. The game started with a 34-degree temperature and 28-degree wind chill.
Oh, my God.
It's just, you can't play baseball in this weather.
Were they wearing winter jackets? Or?
It's ridiculous. You see them walking up in, these face masks, and they're wearing 4 layers. You just can't play baseball in this type of weather. It's not fun to watch. Nobody's at the games. You're not selling tickets. Nobody wants to sit there in the cold and freeze their asses off. And then at home, you're watching nothing happen.
Yeah.
You're watching these guys break bats, get jammed, be in pain. I mean, I'm sure obviously it's different in the MLB. You're not getting paid millions of dollars, but playing baseball growing up, during these cold games on the East Coast, there was like an unspoken agreement between both teams that you were just trying to get the game over with as quickly as possible.
Of course, yeah.
And nobody really cared about winning. Nobody really cared about production in those games. You just wanted to get the hell out of there. And obviously, these professional players, they're getting paid to be out there, so they're going to be out there. But there's got to be this sort of subconscious, F this sort of, feeling towards it. Just get me out of here and get me to warm weather. My God, I mean, start the season in May. Do a weekly doubleheader with these guys. Start the regular season in May, and you make up the games that way. I don't understand.
Well, it's never this cold usually. I mean, this is unusual that it's below freezing during baseball season.
I always feel like you have a couple of games early on where you start seeing snow come down.
No.
I mean, in these Midwest cities, I don't know. It's just it's not fun for anybody out there, the players, and let alone the fans to sit there and watch it. It's like boring. So the Yanks will try and get off.
Do they even sell hot chocolate? Probably not.
I,
Right?
I doubt it. Yeah. I mean, there's nobody in the stands. Like watching a COVID game. It really is. It was like going back in time and watching one of those COVID games. You look out in the stands, you see 5 people.
Wow.
That's what it is. It's like depressing. Nashville, the Islanders came up just short. What turned out to be a goal-scoring frenzy against the Predators. The final score 7-6 in overtime. Up next for the Isles, they'll host the Rangers come tomorrow night. In Jersey, the Devils got dominated by the Boston Bruins by a score of 7-2. They still need 1 point to clinch a playoff spot for the second time in 3 seasons. We'll try and lock that up come Friday night when they welcome in the Pittsburgh Penguins. That's your Sports Gnome, and I'm Justin Ellick on 77 WABC.
Hey, business owners, make your cash secure again with Secure Cash LLC. Transporting your business's cash safely in armored trucks. SecureCashLLC.com.
WABC News Time 521. The Trump administration reportedly freezing nearly $2 billion in funding for 3 more major colleges.
2 U.S. officials told the New York Times that over $1 billion in funding for Cornell University and about $790 million for Northwestern has been frozen. The funding was mostly grants and contracts with the Department of Agriculture, Defense, and other agencies. Both schools have been accused of racial discrimination because of their efforts to promote diversity. The administration is also cutting $4 million in funding for Princeton University that was to be spent on climate research. I'm Tammy Trujillo.
Mayor Adams not happy about this at all. New York City's received a letter from FEMA saying it's going to end several grants intended for the Shelter and Services Program for migrants.
The city received a letter a week ago from FEMA saying it's going to end several grants intended for the Shelter and Services Program for migrants.
That $200 million belongs to us. The previous administration gave us a price tag of handling a national crisis. We are going to fight and state that this $200 million belongs to us.
Now, that's Mayor Eric Adams, who went on to blame the Biden administration for much of the migrant crisis. The White House says the action is part of the Department of Homeland Security's crackdown on illegal immigration under President Trump. Jeff McKinney, 77 WABC News.
WABC News Time 523 was talking with Jumpin' James Flippin about this story during his 2 to 5 o'clock show, which is a must tune in every single morning. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. wants local governments to stop adding fluoride to the water supply. Correspondent Emily Aikita reports that Kennedy is citing a study that found an association between higher fluoride levels and lower IQs in children.
That controversial analysis done outside the U.S. looked at fluoride levels more than double what federal regulators currently recommend in drinking water. The mineral has been widely added to water in the U.S. since the 1940s.
So Kennedy's going to reconvene this task force to review the health effects of fluoride. The task force last reviewed fluoride, you have to go back to 2013, recommended using it as a low-cost and safe method to improve public health, right? It's all about cavities, but Kennedy contends it could have several health risks, including hypothyroidism and osteoarthritis. I'll get that out. Aikita reports that Kennedy wants to see a ban on fluoride water, maybe when this is all said and done.
The fight over fluoride in drinking water on full blast. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. doubling down on his calls to ban the mineral from public water supplies, a move that would reverse a decades-long practice the CDC has called one of the greatest public health achievements in U.S. history.
Now, when you talk to dentists, not all of them, but a majority of them, they say they worry about what would happen if water was no longer fluoridated.
I would anticipate that emergency room visits would go up, and it would just increase the overall dental decay rate in our population.
Now, there's been studies both ways. Some towns, there was one town in Canada that stopped fluoridating the water, and the cavity rate did go up there.
I'm really worried for my patients, especially the most vulnerable of our populations, our children, people with low income levels that may or may not be able to access dental care.
Yeah, so we'll see what this commission has to say. 525, Department of Justice releasing new evidence related to the case involving Ryan Ruth. He's the man accused of attempting to assassinate then Donald Trump outside his Mar-a-Lago golf club.
Ruth is accused of attempting to assassinate Trump at his West Palm Beach golf course in September. A new DOJ court filing shows an alleged text from Ruth to an individual he believed to be a Ukrainian arms dealer, in which he writes he wants to be sent a rocket-propelled grenade so that Trump cannot get elected. He reportedly wanted to fire it at Trump's personal plane. Goes on to say Trump is not good for Ukraine. The feds call it a substantial step in Ruth's plan to kill Trump. His trial is scheduled to take place in the Fort Pierce Federal Courtroom in September. I'm Joel Malkin.
From Florida, let's go out to Los Angeles. Do you remember when it seemed like the Menendez brothers were going to get out of jail? Doesn't seem like that's going to happen anymore. Menendez brothers' resentencing hearing is set for this week. The new Los Angeles DA, Nathan Hochman, plans to ask a judge to withdraw a previous resentencing request claiming the brothers have shown no remorse. Now, of course, if you have not followed the story, maybe you were born after it took place. They're serving life sentences for the 1989 murder of their parents in their Beverly Hills home.
One filed by the court, one filed by the prior district attorney. We're prepared to go forward with the court's motion, but we've asked the court to allow us to withdraw the prior district attorney's motion.
Now, last October, the then DA, George Gascon, recommended resentencing for the brothers who claimed they were sexually abused by their father and that their mother was aware. The entire hearing on Friday may be moot after California Governor Gavin Newsom sent the case to the parole board.
He has unilateral constitutional power to rule today, tomorrow, or any day to commute the Menendez's sentence and release them if he sees to do so through the interests of justice.
Yes, so there's no thought that really is going to happen. The Menendez family, by the way, the Greater family, including the sister of the mother who was killed by the boys, has asked the courts to let them free. They say they've done enough time behind bars.
It's the 77 WABC News Hour. Sponsored by Secure Cash, LLC. Talking the news with Noam Laden. All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now, Talking the News with Noam on 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me. Good morning. It is Wednesday, April 9th. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. Sunshine today. The high going to be 50. Tonight and overnight, a few passing clouds, low 40. Then kind of the same forecast for Thursday. Sun and clouds, high 50. If you are walking out the door with us right now, so happy you are. 32 clear in Mount Vernon up in Westchester County. 31 and clear in Clark over in New Jersey. And it's 33 and clear right outside our Midtown studios. An American Airlines flight from New York to Milan forced to turn back hours into a flight after passengers say there was a frightening incident on board with an unruly passenger. This was flight 198 to Milan. It took off from JFK this was on Monday night at 7 o'clock. 4 hours into the journey, passengers say there was an announcement that the plane would be turning back to New York.
We kind of noticed a scuffle in the back, and they were asking around if there were any police officers or Army members or somebody who could help.
They were telling everybody that there were technical issues with the plane, which I think is even scarier.
Yeah, so the real reason became very apparent very quickly. They noticed there was a commotion in the back of the plane.
He was charging at the stewardesses, and apparently at some point, he charged past all of our seats and tried to barge into the pilots.
So we come to find out that this passenger who was acting crazy was with his wife and his young baby, and there was an argument over the seat that they were sitting in. Now, this is 4 hours into the flight, and there was an argument over the meal that they were being offered. And that's when he apparently went nuts, and so much so that the pilot said, sorry, we got to turn around the plane.
Apparently the whole thing started because of a meal choice that they didn't get, and they also wanted to sit in an exit row. And they had a baby with them, so they told them they couldn't. And apparently those two things are what set the person over the edge.
Yeah, so passengers say they were relieved to be back on solid ground with this lunatic on the plane. Now, here's the crazy part. He has not been charged with any crime. Now, I don't know if that means he won't be, but a police source says the man was released without criminal charges on now then it was Tuesday morning at that point. WABC News Time 540. Okay, I got a series of stories where teenagers are not behaving. This latest one we'll start with is out in Fort Lee, New Jersey. A 16-year-old charged with the attempted murder after he stabbed a fellow student at Fort Lee High School. This was about 11 o'clock yesterday morning. Several students say it started with two students pranking each other days earlier. They say both the suspect and the victim had tension over the weekend, and one pulled the other's pants down, and it was reciprocated, but apparently it got violent, escalated to a whole new level when the two ended up in the bathroom together yesterday.
He said, he stabbed me, please help me. He was just panicking, he was just scared. as any kid should be. Blood all over. His shirt was torn out.
Now, it may be just more than those two students involved. One report has that one student held the other student down while he was stabbed in the neck, abdomen, back, and arm, causing some serious injuries.
After, when we got into lockdown, I had to wash my hands because there was blood all over my hands. It was crazy.
Police say the suspect, a 16-year-old, arrested at the scene, has been charged with first-degree attempted murder, being held at the Bergen County Juvenile Detention Center. And as this was all taking place, the school went into lockdown. And as always happens, the kids start texting their parents to tell them what's going on. Parents race to the scene, nervous about what's taking place.
It's Fort Lee High School. You wouldn't think that would happen, so it's kind of nerve-wracking.
Yeah, you wouldn't expect that to happen there. This morning, though, they'll have extra security on campus when kids to return to class. A 15-year-old out on Long Island is accused of stabbing his mother and fatally stabbing his grandmother at their home in Selden. Police say the mother, her name is Vanessa Chemdemi, 36 years old. She was stabbed multiple times, but she was able to run from their home and flag down an innocent bystander who picked her up in the car and drove her to safety. Now, both the grandmother and the mother had called 911 during this attack. When officers arrived at this home in Selden, they found the grandmother, 56 years old, with stab wounds. She was pronounced dead at the scene by a physician assistant.
Officers responded into the scene, found a woman dead who we determined to be that subject's grandmother. So he stabbed his grandmother to death and stabbed his mother.
The mother taken to the hospital, stable condition, expected to survive. The 15-year-old fled the scene after the stabbing, but police caught up with him pretty quickly. He's behind bars this morning. His lawyer speaking out yesterday. So we're neighbors. Here's a neighbor.
It's horrible. Absolutely horrible. Absolutely horrible. I can't even imagine what that family's going through right now.
Now that teenager facing murder and attempted murder charges. Here's his lawyer.
There's a 15-year-old child here, okay? And he is presumed innocent.
He was arraigned before a judge yesterday, waiting to hear when his future court date may take place. 16 people being charged here in New York City in a murder conspiracy takedown. Manhattan District DA Alvin Bragg says the defendants, 13 of them who are under 18 years old, were in rival gangs in East Harlem.
The root of the alleged violence was retribution between two rival gangs, LA World and Wooski.
The DA says they're responsible for 21 shootings between March and September of 2024, 50% of the shootings in the NYPD's 23rd precinct during that 6-month period. Bragg says bullets were flying everywhere, 15 guns were recovered, neighbors terrorized by this gang.
On crowded street corners, near innocent bystanders, at playgrounds, near children, through the windows of a NYCHA lobby, and a bus stop.
Yeah, well, thank God now they've all been busted. 544, let's go out to Queens. The Restore Roosevelt Avenue Coalition wants the feds to investigate Queens brothels. Remember there was this crackdown a couple months ago? The coalition is led by former state Senator Hiram Montserrat, who's urging the FBI and DEA to step in to stop prostitution on Roosevelt Avenue in Jackson Heights. He says it hasn't completely gone away. Now, the NYPD, the City Hall head, said they had cleaned up this neighborhood where there seemed to be streetwalkers everywhere.
We are asking for the federal government to come in here and shut these criminal operations down. These are cartels, these are organized mobs, and they must be stopped.
So they set up microphones yesterday in front of what they called an active brothel. They say these are cartels that are organized mobs that set up these brothels, and he says they must be stopped. And he says the NYPD has not fully flushed out all these brothels in Queens, where this has been a problem now for a number of years in Jackson Heights. 545. Let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk, and here's Justin Ellick.
Thank you, Noam Laden. We'll start here with the NBA at the Garden. The Knicks lost to the visiting Boston Celtics 119-117. Kristaps Porzingis made a tie-breaking three-pointer with 40 seconds left in OT after Jason Tatum's three-pointer with 3 seconds left in regulation forced the extra period, and the Celtics completed the season sweep of the Knicks with the win. They had routed the Knicks by 23, 27, and 13 in the 3 previous meetings. Karl-Anthony Towns had 34 and 14 for the Knicks. Jalen Brunson added 27 and 9 in his second game back from that 15-game absence and that sprained right ankle. Boston became locked into the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference during the game when Cleveland completed its victory over Chicago to secure the East #1 seed. Up next for the Knicks, still holding on to that 3 seed in the East. They'll visit Detroit tomorrow night in a possible playoff preview. In Brooklyn, Trendon Watford scored 22 points. Drew Timme had 16 and 9 off the bench. And the Nets beat the Pelicans 119-114 to snap a 5-game home losing streak. Up next for them, they'll welcome in the Atlanta Hawks tomorrow night. To the MLB in Queens, Pete Alonso drove in 4 runs. Frankie Lindor hit a leadoff homer, and the Mets beat the Miami Marlins 10-5 for their 6th consecutive victory. Clay Holmes struck out a career-high 10 in 5 1/3 innings for his first win with the Mets and second as a Major League starter. Brendan Nimmo broke a 5th-inning tie with a 2-run double. Starling Marte blooped a 2-run single. Juan Soto had 2 singles and scored twice. Everybody was in on the party. Going for the series sweep, the Mets will throw Tyler McGill in this afternoon series finale with Miami set for a 1:10 p.m. first pitch from Citi Field. In Detroit, the Yankees suffered their 3rd straight loss in the form of a 5-0 shutout at the hands of the Tigers. Good for the Yanks' first goose egg of the season. They've scored just 2 runs in the first 2 games of the series. Shifted to daytime because of cold weather. The game started with a 34-degree temperature and 28-degree wind chill. The same will be done for this afternoon series finale, moved up to a 1:10 p.m. first pitch from Detroit. The Yanks will try and get off the schneid and avoid the sweep with the ace Max Fried set to take the hill. To the NHL in Nashville, the Islanders came up just short in what turned out to be a goal-scoring frenzy against the Predators. The final score 7-6 in overtime. Fedor Svechkov netted the winner as the Predators rallied from 2 goals down late in the 3rd to beat the Isles. Up next for the Isles, they'll host the Rangers come tomorrow night. In Jersey, the Devils got dominated by the Boston Bruins by a score of 7-2. Stefan Neeson and Timo Meier scored for the Devs, which had its 3-game winning streak snapped. They still need 1 point to clinch a playoff spot for the 2nd time in 3 seasons. They'll try and lock that up come Friday night when they welcome in the Pittsburgh Penguins next. That is your Sports Know, man. I'm Justin Ellick on 77 WABC.
WABC News Time 5:49. Drivers continue to react after the MTA announced congestion pricing will stay in place until at least the fall. Some placing blame on President Trump.
Just typical. Like all these other things get in the way, and then he doesn't, follow through on what he said he was going to do.
The amount of extra money he's going to be costing us, even if he does away with this, is, we're still going to be paying more money.
It comes after the MTA, the Trump administration, came to this agreement to extend the deadline to shut off the tolling system, allowing things to play out in court. The Trump administration could threaten to scrap the plan by withholding federal funding, but so far that hasn't happened.
He's messed up enough stuff lately. I think that he should be hands-off on way more things than he's already had his hands on.
Well, the president said a lot of things. It should have been ended. This is ridiculous. Nothing's changed. In my opinion, nothing has changed. I work in the city every day. I don't see a difference.
Congestion pricing raked in $100 million in the first 2 months. So, of course, New Yorkers just want to know where that money's actually going.
They say it is. They say they've made money. Let's see if they use it.
If any city I would trust the most to, do what it's supposed to do, I would say it's New York. I feel like because most New Yorkers, don't really take a lot of crap, we're going to be like, okay, well, if it's not going to the MTA, where are y'all putting that?
So a federal judge will make a decision on this. This will probably be late summer or early fall, so tolls will continue to be collected between now and then. 5:50, we told you yesterday about this Minecraft movie trend where during the movie when one of the lead characters, Jack Black, yells the word chicken jockey, kids go crazy and start taking apart the movie theater itself. And then, of course, they videotape themselves and then they upload it to their favorite social media platform like TikTok. So now we're hearing from other movie theater owners who say, oh, my God, I heard about that story you did yesterday. My theater, the same thing happened, that kids went crazy when the words chicken jockey were uttered during the movie.
And what I'm finding out is apparently there was memes on TikTok that basically incite rowdy behavior based on things that the characters say.
Now, this is not like the Rocky Horror Picture Show where you're going to be throwing things at a movie. This is just kids randomly doing this at what's supposed to be just a normal performance of a movie. 75 kids in this one theater got very rowdy, squirted hand cream all over the place, destroyed a row of seats.
They also brought tubes of hand cream or something.
Yeah,
and
that's weird.
I don't know what that was,
No.
but they were smearing it all over themselves, squirting it around the theater, on the seat. And he was almost in tears telling me how bad the theater is. And they destroyed a row of seats. They were uplifted out of the anchors into the floor.
Now, there is video of these kids doing it, so you would think you'd be able to ID them. They're young teenagers, but either way, their families should probably pay for the damage, no?
Some of the parents responded by defending their kids, saying, oh, they're kids, they're having fun. They're having fun. So that post went crazy.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I mean, those parents should be hauled in and told, hey, fess up, give me the money for all the damage that you did. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy making history as he announces his second round of clemency decisions. After consideration from the Clemency Advisory Board, Murphy says he's granted 87 pardons and commuted 6 sentences now.
They have served their time and owned up to their actions. And most of all, they have earned this legal relief, which will allow them to move forward in their lives so they can contribute to our shared future.
Of course, Governor Murphy can't run again, so no problem there. He's granted clemency to nearly 130 individuals throughout his administration, adding that that's more than any Jersey governor has granted in the past 3 decades.
That means a century of family get-togethers, holidays, and memories. It means parents being reunited with their children and lives being changed on a fundamental level for the better.
5:53. Let's go out to Long Island. A Long Island man is suing a Queens hospital after he recently learned he was switched at birth decades ago. 64-year-old Kevin McMahon and Ross McMahon, no relation, were born minutes apart at Jamaica Hospital. Baby Kevin went home with Ross's biological parents in Queens, and baby Ross went home with Kevin's biological parents to Long Island. Kevin McMahon says he learned the heartbreaking truth through his sister, who did one of those DNA tests at Ancestry.com.
She was so fearful, so, anxious about telling me. And when she told me, I couldn't process the information.
Now, all 4 parents have since died. Kevin McMahon says growing up, he was unloved by the adults in his life, a puzzle that was only solved when his sister suggested the DNA testing. His mother apparently was an alcoholic. This is according to him. His grandmother, he said, beat him because he didn't look like the rest of the kids in the family, and she thought that he was a love child of some sort.
My siblings joked that, you were the mailman's kid. If this happened today, and parents went home from the hospital and they're like, this child is completely unlike us, like that, they would start to question it immediately.
Now, the question is, does he have a case? Well, he'll point to the fact that Ross, who went home with his family, had a much better life when he should have been with the family that Kevin ended up with. Here's his lawyer.
2 Caucasian mothers with the same last name in their 30s that both gave birth to baby boys at the same hospital on the same day within 2 hours of each other.
Yeah, so after learning about the switch, Kevin McMahon found out his biological father had been a woodworker and his biological mother loved birds. And this is the crazy part. Those are both passions of his. So clearly he was sent home with the wrong parents.
I feel I could have shared so much with my parents, with my birth parents, but I didn't get to do that. That certainly would have changed the whole course of my life.
Yeah, no doubt it would have. Jamaica Hospital, by the way, so far making no comments on this lawsuit against them. 81-year-old woman going through a travel nightmare after she went to visit her family in Puerto Rico. Maria Faderigo took her pet parrot in a cage to Puerto Rico from New York City. Now she wants to return home with her pet parrot to New York City. And when she tried to get on a flight, they told her you can't bring that parrot aboard. But she's like, well, wait a minute. You let me bring it to Puerto Rico. Why can't I bring it back home?
You will be able to make this flight. Get rid of your bird. Give it to somebody.
Yeah, she said they only told her once she got to the airport. She says her parrot is an emotional support animal. His name's Plucky. She's been inseparable for him for over 2 decades. She says the parrot helped her when her husband passed away.
He kept me going, talking to me, making me laugh when I was down.
Yeah, but now the 81-year-old grandmother from the Bronx and the parrot are stranded in Puerto Rico because she says, I'm not going to leave them behind. And you think there'd be some airline that would say, okay, bring the parrot on board.
He kept me going, talking to me, making me laugh when I was down.
Yeah, so how do you, I mean, she's 81 years old. Let her bring the parrot on. So her son has been reaching out to all kinds of airlines to see if she can get the parrot back with her, and so far it just hasn't happened.
My mother did nothing wrong, and she just needs to be taken care of and sent home. She didn't want anything else but to go home, and no one wants to help.
Yeah, I don't get the part where they let her bring the parrot down to Puerto Rico, but not back home. That doesn't make sense to me.